Hi there and welcome to another episode of the 33 vlog. My name's Warren Pohl, I'm one of the co-founders here at 33 and it gives me huge pleasure for today's show to introduce elite British ultramarathon runner Damian Hall. Damian's running CV is stellar to say the least. This is a guy who has taken some very impressive results and some huge scalps at some of the biggest and most fiercely competitive ultramarathon events anywhere in the world. What's even more impressive about this is that Damian has achieved all this in his early 40s, having only come to running in his mid-30s. Damian is living, breathing proof that if you want something enough, if you're prepared to put the work in, and if you can set your goals, break things down and work towards it, with frankly an ironclad belief in yourself, then your limits don't have to be anywhere near where people tell you they should be. There is absolutely no requirement to be average, and Damian's story is just a fascinating light into that. So if you're looking for tools and mindset elements and basically inspirational stories to help fuel your own belief to achieve your goals in life and sport, then I think you are really going to enjoy this conversation. Because that's what our mission is here at 33. It's about delivering people the very best elements to take their game and their lives to the next level. And we really do it in two ways. One way is by sharing great content and conversations like this. And another way is by feeding the body with our nutrition, which you will find at 33shake.com. Anyway, look, I will shut up now and hand you over. Well, I'll sort of shut up because I'm doing the interview. You're going to hear a little bit of me coming up. Let's get on to this conversation with Damian Hall. So I think the best place I wanted to start with all stories is probably the beginning. And relatively, given what you've achieved, you came to this fairly late and not that long ago.
Yeah, I guess I always played a lot of football, and I was really into, for a few years, I went traveling and I got really into long distance hiking or trekking, but I wasn't a runner, or not, at least not since school, until I did the Bath Half in 2011, and it blew me away, to be honest. I was like, this is amazing, I want to do more of this. And I thought, I looked around thinking, what other races can I do? I should have probably bought Runner's World or something, because I thought there were only 3 races at the time. I thought there was the Bath Half, the Bristol Half, and the London Marathon. They were the only 3 races I thought existed.
So I waited. Are there any
year.
more?
No, it's just those 3.
Oh, okay. No wonder they're busy.
Yeah. So I couldn't do the Bath Half, the Bristol Half in autumn. So I waited a full year to do the Bath Half again, a whole year excited about doing it. By then I'd signed up for the Brighton Marathon as well, which I ran dressed as a toilet, to raise money for Water Aid. People shouting, "You look a bit flushed, mate," was, funny for the first 10 miles or so. So I ran that, and then, like you, my background is sort of journalism, so I was pestering a new magazine at the time called Outdoor Fitness to take a running story from me, and the editor really called my bluff and said, all right, we want a running story, but not that one. I'm going to send you on your first ultra marathon. So this is 2012, and I did a race called The Wall, and of course I had to, he'd called my bluff, so I had to accept it. I didn't really know what I was putting myself in for. I didn't train very well. To me, running probably 4 runs a week was a big week, I suppose, at the time. And it hurt like hell. And I absolutely loved it. I just still remember now, the camaraderie amongst people was totally different to the road running. It felt like everyone was in a team together. I loved the aid stations. You just sit there and scoff your face. The scenery was obviously a bit better than city centres. And above all, the achievement of finishing was a great feeling. Great mentally feeling, but my legs were shot for quite a while. I straight away thought, this is for me. I want more of this. So the next year I signed up for my first 100K, my first 100 miler.
Just before we leap into hundreds, give us some context on that first ultra. How long was that first one?
It was 69 miles, but over 2 days.
Okay.
So in a way, it was a bit of a gap. That seemed, you could do a 1 day or a 2 day option, and because it was new to me, a 2 day option seemed more sensible, a bit more conservative. But of course, you wake up the next morning, and your legs are in an interesting new place. So that those, getting going that next morning was quite tough, if I remember.
And you're just coming. So your longest distance at this point is what, 1-2 marathons?
I've done one marathon, and I definitely wouldn't have run. I don't think I would have run 20 miles again in my training. So I'd done one marathon run and probably another run of, maybe I'd done some run of 15, 16, 17 miles, maybe building up.
And at any point, is there anything coming through like, I've done my first marathon and it was a 2 hour 45. Was there any sort of hint that there was more below the surface, a bit like an iceberg?
I don't know. My first marathon was 3:17, which coincidentally is exactly the same as Jez Bragg's debut marathon.
And he did all right.
Yeah, he did okay. He also has a background in long distance hiking, interestingly. But so I think, well, my wife has always said my idea of fun isn't the same as most people's. So I think when it comes to ultra running, like, I love being out. So the long distance walking, it's a lot more similar to the sport than I realized initially. It's about being out in somewhere lumpy, being out all day, maybe all night, carrying a pack, looking after yourself, maybe a bit of navigation, something I'm still terrible at, eating, putting up with a few chafes in the bathing suit area, that sort of thing. So I was already kind of doing that. I didn't realize I was, but I was already doing a lot of that stuff that's good for ultra running. But athletically, I mean, even now I'm probably at the point where I'm close to as good as I'll ever be for, say, marathon and half marathon, and it's not very impressive. In the running club I go to, sometimes at Bath, there are 10 runners at least with more impressive half marathons and marathon PBs than mine. So it's not, I don't have great athletic sort of talent, but I do like going up and down lumpy things quite a lot, and I don't mind if it hurts a little bit. And yeah, I like that sort of thing, I suppose.
So with that going on, and you've got those, so that first 69 miler is a funny number, of course, because it's 69, snigger. It's also memorable. You may have said 68, but I'm not exactly sure. But they're over 2 days. That second day, your legs are in a new and interesting place. I wanted to see if we could connect some dots here, at risk of making a clear narrative from a jumbled set of facts, which is something that our brains do anyway. That second day, your legs feel in bits. I'm guessing you may not be that keen on running. If you woke up and felt like that on a training day, you'd almost certainly have called it off, or most sane people would. There's something mental that's driving you beyond this. There's some motivation in there. What was it, and how did it feel that first day when you came to run a huge distance, a second day, with legs in, as you put it, interesting, strange place?
Well, there's a couple of things. I guess one is like a personal pride and stubbornness and competitiveness. And I don't remember my exact final placing, but I think on the second day I was in the top quarter or the top third of the race. Which just purely is my own, like, I didn't have anyone to boast to about that or anything. That was purely my own wanting to do as well as possible. So there's a competitiveness in me, which I've realized, and from having children now myself, some people just seem to be sort of born with that and some people don't, I think. But also, as you will know yourself, there was a photographer employed also to record this as a magazine story. And I knew if I didn't complete it, like, I wouldn't get paid, there wouldn't be a story, and he might not get paid as well. So there's that, there's that kind of pressure. I wasn't in it for the money, but there was that sense of obligation to others already. And I actually genuinely think doing most of these early races as journalist stories has really helped me in that I definitely did one, which was a 3 hour marathon. And the whole point was sub 3 hour. The whole point was, how do you run a sub 3 hour marathon? And in the final few miles, it was like, well, if I don't run fast enough now, there's no story. I don't get paid. The photographer doesn't get paid. So it has actually helped me quite a lot, I think, in that. One magazine did have a policy of it has to be a successful outcome. If you don't succeed, whatever the success is, there's no story. You're not getting paid. That's helped me, I think.
It's a hell of a piece of accountability, even if it's internal, because the funny thing about the magazine piece, And maybe we'll look at the sort of your background in journalism before that and how that fits into what you do now. But that it gives you an accountability to a group of people you don't know at all. You're never going to see them again. You're unlikely to meet them. Yet somehow you feel like, okay, so there's an accountability bit there. I'm very interested what you say about the photographer being there, because if it rests on you finishing, whether he gets paid or not, that's another good one. And the magazine that didn't take the story if you didn't succeed. On the one hand, that's a good lever, but the other thought that came into my mind was, does that just mean it's a magazine full of unrealistic expectations where everyone assumes, who's reading it, that everyone finishes everything all the time and DNFs don't exist?
Well, yeah, I don't know. A lot of questions. I mean, I must admit, I did a mountaineering story for the same magazine, and it became apparent. It was a tricky, awkward trip that there was another client, and there was one guide and two of us, and it became apparent that we weren't going to summit the mountain, partly because of the other guy. And I did actually have time to contact the editor and say, look, we're not going to be able to do that, succeed. And he was like, well, so there's got to be some sort of success. And he, luckily, I sort of had a good conversation with the guide, and we basically decided, to go for a smaller mountain and summit that mountain. So we had a success. It wasn't the success that we started off with, but in a way, that's the sport, that's adventure in a nutshell, isn't it? That sometimes you start off with certain expectations and they end up being a bit different. You change your goals along the way. But also, I mean, your background, you would have done similar, I'm sure, that, you would have been in that situation. And I honestly think it's helped me rather than hindered me. And it's come, even now, like my most recent UTMB, although, it wasn't going to be a magazine story necessarily, or that wasn't the primary purpose. I had my two good friends, Matt and Ellie from Summit Fever Media, they were making a film of it. So, I wanted to do well for them. And so when you get a bit tired and fed up and self-pitying and maybe lazy, you're reminding that they've invested both literally, and sort of emotionally and their time in it. And you've got to put an effort in for them as well. And so I think that sort of stuff helps me. I mean, I guess it could flip the other way and become a bit of a burden, but I haven't really seen it that way so far. But I don't know if that really answers your question, but it's probably enough waffle from me for a second or two.
Well, it certainly moves us on, and I think I will randomly, no doubt, take us down various channels, and I think between the two of us, we can steer this thing through to some safe and useful, entertaining waters. But it was just interesting, that idea of accountability is clearly a strong one. That feeds through with your photographer, who you didn't want to let down. The guys at Summit Fever Media doing the film. I can certainly relate to writing stories about doing something. You're like, well, I don't really want to have to write that I didn't finish this. Although
they put that personal pride as well, I think. Yeah.
Although the kicking that I took in UTMB #1, which was thrown to me far too early by virtue of, I pitched it to the Mail on Sunday, of all people, thinking they wanted a list of adventure stories, and I thought, this will make me look great, and it's so niche they will never go for it. And they called me on it. Exactly like you, getting sent on your first ultra, they called me on it, and suddenly I was left with 4 months to get ready for it. And anyway, snapped me into like a twig, began the beginnings of an obsession, no doubt something that you can resonate with to an even greater degree, and which we'll come to in a little bit. But before I end up waffling and driving us into the bushes, you said competitiveness, and something you've noticed since having children as well. Competitiveness is something you're either born with or you're not, to a degree. So do you think it really is quite a binary, you've got it or you haven't, when it comes down to that last bit of grit?
I don't know. In a way, when I said that, it was kind of a guess. And I must admit, I heard a podcast with Angela Mudge, who's an amazing fell runner, record-breaking fell runner. And she said the same. And I kind of thought, well, if she thinks it, then at least there's something in it. And I can see with both of my children, one of them's got a very competitive mindset, and the other one isn't interested hardly at all in being competitive, which is quite interesting to me. And also, I think my wife, I guess I'm quite competitive in some things. But my wife generally isn't so much like that. So it's quite interesting watching your children develop and have parts of your personalities possibly that for better or worse. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to hear from someone who maybe. Well, I tell you what, I interviewed Mimi Kotka recently, the amazing Swedish ultra runner, who's right at the top of her game. And she actually said she hadn't, as a child, she was very rarely competitive about things, and then at university she started to feel competitive. Firstly in academic terms, and then as she got into trail running, she wants to win now. So that was quite interesting. So that almost disproves my flippant comment earlier that I think maybe you can develop it. Maybe you need to find something you're passionate about, and then you might find you've got it. But the great thing about ultra running, I think, is you don't have to be competitive. You can. Lots of people just say, I want to complete this challenge, rather than sort of compete in it, and that's totally fine. And that's still, often very laudable and impressive. So yeah, I don't have a definite sort of answer to that really, but some people seem to really want to push themselves, and some people are maybe happy to just to get around, and that's fine.
And I think maybe as well you could be unlocking something with the idea of the motivation behind whether it's compete or whether it's complete, or whether complete is the gateway drug. That's step one, and then after complete it's like, maybe I could compete, maybe it develops from there. But just, this is something that I'll make sure is covered up front, but just in case people are confused, you're talking about writing stories, making films, interviewing people. You're not just randomly going out and about stalking and doing this. I mean, journalism was your full-time profession, and now presumably coexists alongside what's basically a professional running career.
Yeah, kind of. I've been a full-time journalist since year 2000. Started off in football. That was my big passion at the time. I'm still interested, but I'm more interested in ultra running. I went traveling in the year 2002. So my work became more like travel journalism, I suppose, and that slowly turned into kind of outdoor journalism, hiking and mountaineering. And that's also, we're talking over sort of 20 years here almost. More recently, that's turned into, writing about, I suppose, running. So it's a great career, as you will know, for following your passion sort of thing. You can manipulate it to get free race entries, for example. And to start writing about the things you're passionate about. And what I've been really grateful of is, it's not a career to retire easily on, or to ever earn much money on, as you'll know. But it's amazing because I get to interview, I suppose, people that inspire me, and that's been, I've interviewed, I suppose, rock stars and footballers and football managers, and more recently I get to interview my elite sort of trail running heroes as well, which is fascinating, but also many sort of experts and coaches and people like that. So I'm very grateful that the sort of the journalism lets me do that. That's great. But yeah, I guess in more recent years, as you will know all too well, print journalism is sort of an industry in decline, or an industry in trouble. I keep telling people the internet is just a passing fad, but it does seem to be a fad that's lingering a little while. But the internet has caused problems for print, as you'll know. So it makes sense to me to be a bit less reliant on that. And what I found over the last few years, people have approached me to coach them to run ultras, and now that's become a huge part of what I do, especially in the last year or two. And I really, really enjoy that. It's fascinating work, and it feels a real privilege that people will sort of trust you with for you to advise them. And it's really fulfilling when people achieve something they didn't think they maybe could or were fearful about. But yeah, in terms of being a full-time athlete, I get a tiny bit of help for sort of travel to races and stuff, but I'm definitely not. I pretty much every day I'm doing some work that isn't that's proper work. I spend a lot of too much time at my desk. Often if I've been out for a long run in the day, I'm at my desk into the evening. So that's something I struggle with a bit when I'm trying to compete with some of these guys who are full-time. Often neglecting my rest a little bit, I suppose, which is something I've got to do better at. But yeah, certainly not complaining. I'm very, very happy with my life, and lucky to do lots of silly races, I suppose.
Well, let's. I mean, you've brought up a ton of stuff there, and whereas one thing I'm very conscious of with these is the difference with something like a podcast versus the sort of more traditional journalism interviews that we've both done a lot of in the past is that with the journalism one, it's just talking to yourself, and you then put it into context and put it all out later in the podcast. People are making some mental jumps. So at the moment, let's get them back. Let's put some ground back under their feet with all the ground that's gone under your feet. My God, how about that for a terrible segue? I'll be here all week, available for weddings, for mitzvahs, probably funerals. Anyway, to get back to that. We've got you've run the Bath Half, you've run marathon, you've then got the Ultra Bug through a sort of serendipitous magazine intervention from above, and there you are. Okay, I really like this ultra stuff. You pursue it further to the point where, and we can go into this sort of difference later as well. You have reached a very serious level in ultra distance running, specializing in, I'm gonna call it mountain trail ultra running. I mean, it's not quite sky running, is it? That's sort of shorter and even stupider. We're talking 80 to 100 miles through really rough terrain, as much up and down as you can, all off road. I mean, how would you define the races that you really sort of the ones that you focus on, UTMB and co? What group would you put those in?
Yeah, I mean, for anyone who's getting into sort of, I suppose, trail running or long distance off-road running, those first few years, as you'll know yourself, are just fascinating and really rewarding in that there are so many different types of races to try. Obviously multi-stage races like Marathon des Sables and similar. And then you've got, fell races, mountain marathons even. I've discovered, my navigation is appalling, so I don't do so many of those at the moment, but I'm sure I will do more. But over time, I've learned that, I suppose the UTMB style race, maybe 50 to 100 miles, as lumpy as possible, because ultimately I don't want to run too much of it. I like hiking. So I can hike those long uphills, and then enjoy those lovely long downhills, which I used to really hate. But at the moment, that feels like my best sort of thing. 50 to 100 miles, as lumpy as possible. That's what I like right now. But I love the fact that the sport caters for lots of people. There are even a few road ultras. I find them a bit hurty. Multi-stage races, you will have done a lot yourself. And then people who really want to go more extreme, things like, Tour de Géant and the Spine Race. And, there's really multi-day single stage races, which really, really send you to some interesting places as well. It's a great sport full of lots of different ways to bash yourself about.
Well, on the path that you took, am I right in thinking the Spine Race sort of is your bridge, as it were, between the original ultra experience and then a sort of obsession with the Spine Race that then became a full-blown UTMB obsession? Is that a good rough timeline for you?
Yes, I think, I had this new obsession with, even though the magazine sent me to ultra running, I think I would have gravitated that way. I just didn't know that much about the scene, but at some point I would have discovered it, maybe through reading Outdoor Fitness, maybe. I would have come that way, and then I soon learned there was going to be a race on the Pennine Way. Now, it just so happens I've written a guidebook for the Pennine Way, and I'd walked it recently and I absolutely loved it. And it's our oldest national trail. There's a lot of history. It's involved with the sort of Kinder Trespass, which, for those who don't know, sort of opened up the countryside for us commoners to go and stroll in, whereas before a lot of it was private land and we weren't allowed to walk in the upland areas. So there's a great history with that trail. And it just nicely, it goes from sort of the middle of England to the top of England, right in the middle. There's a nice sort of backbone of England feel, hence the name of the Spine Race. For those
and the length of that in terms of the trail and the race? It's
268 miles. So I heard in a magazine that some people were going to try and put a race on it in winter, in January. And I just thought that's 7, you had up to 7 days to complete it. And I just thought that's the complete lunacy, that, it'll never work. At the same time, I do remember I did email the editor of the same magazine saying, "Can you let me do this? Can you let me do this race?" And initially, he actually said it was too niche. Like, firstly, let's see if the race survives, if it carries on. And he said, so few of our readers will actually want to do that race. I'm not sure about it. So I think a lot of people watched with interest that first year, and I think they had less than 20 people, maybe like 12, 15 people. And I think 3 people finished from memory. It was like it was literally a handful. So it was like, oh, wow, okay, well, will they put it on again? And they did put it on again. And this time it was similar, maybe 25 starters. And maybe this time, forgive me can't remember exactly, but maybe this time 6, 7, 8 people finished. And I think that was enough for quite a few people to go, okay, it's possible. And so that third year, I'd signed up. Pavel Polonce, who a lot of people will know, the Czech runner who ended up winning it 3 times and competing it 5 times. That was his first year as well. So this is 2014. So I think it was my 5th ultramarathon. So in a way, I was quite out of my depth, but in a way, I wasn't, because I'd already walked the Pennine Way, albeit in summer.
Not in January, trying to race it and run it, and presumably your timings on this, are there cutoffs, or is it simply as long as you get to a point in time, you're simply allowed to continue regardless of whether you sleep or not? So presumably your pace comes down to a lot of how often you fall asleep or let yourself sleep.
There are some cutoffs, 2 or 3 of them on the route. I wasn't, if I'm honest, I never really took much heed of. I wasn't too worried about the cutoffs, and I wasn't at the same time. I wasn't trying to be too ambitious, but I fantasized about being in the top 10 if I could be. But what was amazing is, I suppose, I guess I looked after myself better than some people did in terms of just fueling and putting extra layers on and not panicking too much if you go off route, and which is obviously a bit embarrassing if you've written the guidebook for it. And that towards the end of the race, I had wild hallucinations. In fact, I thought people were setting off Chinese lanterns for me to follow. Right near the end, I hadn't had much sleep at all, and I was convinced someone was leading me into the finish, so I followed these lanterns. And of course, it was the first year they had the tracking on, so people could follow it online. And obviously, if you're way off course and if you've written the guidebook for that course, that's a little bit embarrassing.
Had the Chinese lanterns, were they actually not magically taking you to the finish?
No, they didn't exist. They were hallucinations. I did ask 1 or 2 other runners if they'd seen them, and they looked at me with strange expressions on their faces. But yeah, it was mind blowing that first time. So it hurt a fair bit, but getting to the end was incredible. And I straight away thought, I've got to do this again. It was a real obsession, I think.
Now, in terms of, so that's a first time spine race, a first time finish, 268 miles, 7 days maximum. Just roughly finish time, even in days and increments, and sleeping hours between start and finish. Where would you put those roughly on that first? Do
you know what? I really don't know what my finish time was, but it was well over 100 hours. And did I finish on the Friday afternoon? I actually ended up in. It wasn't nearly as competitive then as it is now. I actually ended up in 4th place, but I was many hours behind Pavel, the winner, I didn't even think of this, but he went through the first 2 nights without sleeping. So he was an adventure racer, and he's mastered this ability to just keep going. Basically, if you watch him move, you wouldn't think he was necessarily moving that fast, but he's incredibly efficient, and he can just go without sleep forever. I slept, I think 8 to 10 hours. Like, it's a while ago now, but yeah, in kind of 2 to 4 hours sort of. And I skipped sleep on the last night. I think 8 to 10 hours. But it was tricky. I think early on in the race, I was so excited about it all that actually I couldn't sleep very well. And then after that, it wasn't a problem at all because you're so wrecked. I mean, it did wreck me a bit. I couldn't run. It wrecked the tendons down the front of my shins, which are a reoccurring problem for me actually. And it sent me down a t-shirt size. I used to wear mediums. I was never like Arnold Schwarzenegger exactly, but I have had a couple of spells of going to the gym, and I used to wear a medium t-shirt, and now I only wear smalls. Like, I've never recovered the body mass from that, because I think the day after the race, obviously I really needed a good feed, and I ended up not having breakfast. I got on the train to get home, and there was no food. There was no buffet car open. I ended up spending the whole day, pretty much had maybe 2 muesli bars when I needed like 5 days worth of food in one day, sort of thing. So I lost it. I think my body was, it got through the fat, was probably eating the protein. So yeah, a few lessons learned there.
But in terms of the brutality there, which will also play into the UTMB side of the story and the others, what would be your sort of key takeaways or things to give people for continuing when you want to stop? Now, I realise that everyone's definition of want to stop is different, but let's say continuing under duress. In the case of the spine race, it's freezing cold, it's the middle of the night, you're on your own, it's foul weather, and at 130 miles in, you're still actually not halfway. Motivation is a separate part of the equation, but you talked about looking after yourself, whether mentally, physically, logistically. What do you think would be your key takeaways for keeping that pace going, keeping that inner fire going, and actually just making sure that you are in one piece? You also mentioned not beating yourself up too much if you went off course a little bit, just not turning dramas into crises. There's a lot of things there, but any sort of top 3, top 4 things that you think are really good skills to build and develop and ways that you've done them?
Well, Warren, number 1, I'd say nutrition.
Now there's a good subject.
I don't know if you know much about nutrition.
Nah, nothing.
I think, it's easy, especially when you're kind of racing, to forget to eat. And over a race that long, you're going to have, you're not going to get it right all the time, but in a way, just, keep eating. I don't know, for those who followed Jasmine Paris's extraordinary win this year's spine race, there was a really telling point in one of the videos where she said, "Oh, the guys I'm running with don't seem to eat much," and she smashed them. Now obviously there's more to it than that, but at least do that. At least give yourself the right fuel and enough fuel regularly to make good decisions, because when you're depleted, you start to make bad decisions when the brain is starved of the fuel it needs, and you get colder, and you make people retiring with hypothermia, and sometimes that's not as simple as putting an extra layer on. Sometimes if you're not fueling well, that's part of it too. So I would say eat little and often, eat lots. Number 2, I suppose, I guess, the psychology of it fascinates me. And I've definitely had races where a little thing has got to me and I've dwelled on it and let it upset me. But so often there's a tendency, I think, to tell yourself it's a disaster when actually you're still having a great race or things are actually going fine. So I suppose, that can take some practice. But trying to be relaxed about it. There's a great line. Who's that Canadian runner? I forget, the Canadian Gary Robbins, who's done Barkley about 3 times, and there's a great line that he said once about trying to be unemotional. It's not easy, but during a race or an event, trying to remove all the emotions. But of course, especially if you haven't fueled well, you're going to be more emotional. You're going to be more tired, and I don't always get that right. But trying not to. I spoke to the psychologist on the race. They employ
the spine race.
Yeah, that's the only race I've done where they've had a full-time psychologist.
And is that part runner safety or pure research and interest?
I think it's more the first one, actually. So I remember the first time I met her, she did she kind of said, "Oh, how's it going?" And I was like, "Oh, great." And she said, "Okay, I was just, I'm the psychologist and I was just checking up on you in a way." She'd done a little test on me of some form to check I was doing okay. And I did chat to her at length about what it takes to do well at these races, and she thought the key word was adaptability. Adapting your plan, adapting your mindset. The weather's worse than you think. The shoes you thought were going to be great aren't so great. They haven't got what you thought they'd have at the checkpoint. You're slower than often. You're much slower than you thought you'd be, and being able to adapt, that plan. Adapt your mindset, which is easier said than done. Sometimes it takes a few hours to, first you need to sulk a bit sometimes before you adapt, I've found. But I think that's another key thing. Like you say, not everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face, I suppose, as either Mike Tyson or his...
Cus D'Amato, Mike Tyson's trainer, but yes, certainly a Tyson.
Yeah.
A Tyson one. I mean, letting yourself... have a bit of a paddy when things go wrong, kind of getting it out. Very, very English or British. We like to bottle things up. Erica, my wife and partner in the business, she's Italian, very fiery. Get it all out, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. But if, let's say, you're in a race, that one of the advantages of an ultra distance race is you have time to recover, and something's gone wrong or not how you planned. Well, you have time to deal with it potentially. But you can also have far more time to let the demons get to you and drag you down and lose the battle from the inside out. So you're actually saying that you would, let that out a little bit, let it out. You're going to get angry or upset or whatever it is. You, by all means, we need to put your words on this. But when you've done that, how do you then overcome? Because I think the risk for a lot of people is you can get to that stage where you hate everything. Your feet, the course, the organizer. That's clearly mismarked it. The aid station is clearly 10k away further than they ever said. The weather, why the bloody hell do they choose this particular weekend? When you start hating everything, it's gone wrong. Now that inward, downward spiral can go quite bad for people. So if you're going to vent a little bit, how do you then balance the venting of the anger or frustration and the return to focus and ultimate achievement?
Well, that's a great question. I don't have a neat formula for that, or a neat catchphrase. But I suppose experience helps. I suppose that often it's not nearly as bad as you thought. I've had a few races recently, maybe where I've got into a mindset for a little spell. Even my most recent UTMB, which might go down as one of my better results. After about 2 or 3 hours, I was in a negative mindset. I thought it wasn't going well. One of the problems was this sounds so stupid now, but a spectator, my French, I only got a grade E for GCSE French, but a spectator seemed to say I was 30 something or something. My French, my numbers aren't great, and I thought I probably wasn't. I was somewhere in the teens. But that actually really got to me, and I started to think I'm doing terribly. I'm having a rubbish time. Really, I was probably just underfueled a bit. I needed a snack, and that is one of my rules. If I think sort of low mood, you need some food. If you think of anything negative, I nearly always have eat and drink, because often it's suboptimal fueling. So that's one rule, I suppose, is that if things aren't going your way, make sure your fueling's on point, because it'd be annoying if it was simply that. And I'm sure we've all done that in races where really that's been the cause of it. And it can be tricky sometimes, and you do dwell on stuff. But I suppose it's trying to have a bit of perspective, trying to stand back from it, trying to almost go above yourself and try and look at yourself in the race and thinking, okay, well, that hasn't gone well, but these other 3 or 4 aspects are still going well. You're uninjured, you're eating well. All right, you went off course for 20 minutes, but most of the other things are going well, and trying to put it in a perspective like that, I suppose. But also, like you say, I think it's okay to be a bit angry sometimes. And this is a slightly embarrassing one, but I ran the Southwest Coast Path a few years ago to set an FKT on that. So that was like 11 days of running. So and there was very little sleep.
The FKT, sorry, awkward button, but for anyone who's not aware of them, that's fastest known time, right?
Yes. So me and 2 friends were trying to set a record, and we did in the end. But it was very, very, very tiring. There wasn't much time for sleep. I averaged sort of 3 hours sleep a night.
Because this was over what distance and time? Just because before people think this is a quick stroll to the beach.
So it ended up being between 10 and 11 days. I think it was 10 days and 17, 16 hours. And it's 630 miles. So it ended up being sort of 60 miles a day. But it's very, very like this. So it meant there was almost no time for sleep. So some serious sleep deprivation again. But towards the end, I just discovered the power of the power sob. And so the last 2 or 3 mornings, at almost exactly the same time, I would just feel a bit overwhelmed by everything, just exhausted above anything else. Also a bit guilty from being away from my children and whether I was, really being a good father to them, I suppose. So I had that guilt, and it would really gnaw at me. And I would just explode for 5 or 10 seconds, just let out a wail and a sob. And then I always felt amazing. So that does tie into that idea of sometimes that British upper lip thing. is, it's useful, but it's not always the way. Sometimes, shout about, maybe just shout out loud or something, and try and let it out a bit. And often, well, I looked into the tears thing actually, and your body does spread with a natural sort of painkiller when you cry, apparently. So it literally makes you feel better. So
Wow.
It is quite a good tactic. I like to think I don't cry in every single race, but I don't think that's the only one I've cried in either. So it's that's another tactic for people anyway.
That's incredible. The power sob, trademark, Damian Hall. I'm looking forward to fast forwarding 10 years as elite sport finally cottons on, and they're all booing their eyes out halfway around. Yes, and we can see he's having his power sob here. Expect acceleration in the next 5 minutes. Good, that's brilliant. I love that.
I need to copyright that one.
So we've got to in a lengthy sort of meandering trail-like up and down fashion. We've got to the obsession that is the UTMB, and you're clearly proving yourself to be a more than adept front-end extreme distance off-road runner, and something that I just wanted to pick up on here because. In the classical sense of the word, you and I are no spring chickens, and I absolutely love this because we're both just north of 40 by a little bit of interest, and so when the UTMB obsession bites, the results are starting to come. You've got to be what, late 30s? We're talking what, 38, 39?
Yeah, I must be. I've done it. So I'm 43 now. I must have been 39. 39. Yeah, 39 was my first one, I think.
Okay, so here we are at the cliche point where apparently life is meant to fall apart and everything goes wrong. And one of my favourites with this is age-related sarcopenia, which is muscle mass loss with age. And this is very short, but basically at 40 we're all losing muscle. But when you look at the studies, it's because they're looking at average population, and 40 is the point where, for an average person, they haven't done any exercise for at least 15 years. If anyone stops exercise for 15 years, they're going to lose muscle. It's not the age that causes the muscle loss and the potential performance loss. It's the lack of using it. But it's easy to get into that mindset, and by heck, I tell you what, if you were a protein company looking to expand sales, then targeting slightly unstable middle-aged crisis men with the idea that they can eat this and get a six-pack, that's pretty good marketing. So round and round the little vicious circle goes. But instead, something I like, because with perspective, 40 is, it might as well be 30, frankly, for what your body is capable of, unless you truly have been an Olympic-style athlete and you've hit your aerobic peak at 24 or whatever it is. We've all got headroom to expand into, but not only do you prove that, you took that headroom to the absolute zenith. So what was your mindset, or was there any conscious thing of, should I be doing this, can I do this, or was it like, I feel good, I just want to keep going? Did you ever have any idea that age was relevant, or that other athletes were younger, or that it could be an impediment, or was that never a part of your story? Because I'm just so impressed with the way what you've done is such an example to so many people, above and beyond. Anyone who's thinking, I'm getting a bit old, well, I probably ought to stop. It's the opposite.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you. I don't know. I guess I cling more to the idea that I'm comparatively new to running, and I sometimes sort of joke, I'm 43, but I'm only 6 or 7 in running years, and it does seem to be that I know a few people have been running since school, or for many several decades, and they maybe are slowing a bit more because they've had all that running in them. I don't really know the science behind it, whether that's cardiovascular or muscle or what. But I still feel like I'm fairly new to this sport, although I have been sporty all that time. I haven't noticed any sort of decline personally yet, but in the last couple of years, I've realized sleep is become more important to me. Like I used to get away with less sleep and feel that less, and now I realize, no, I do need to consider it properly part of my training. So if I am getting up early a couple of times, I've got to think the next night or the next 2 nights I've got to go to bed early. I've got to factor that rest or sleep in. Yeah, I mean, what's great about this sport, I think, hopefully, is that experience pays a bit as well, and a bit of life experience also when the race gets tough. Hopefully, as older athletes can put it in perspective, and it doesn't matter that much, the race, in general, in overall life terms. Hopefully those little hissy fits or whatever, they don't matter so much, and we can move on a bit, and we've been through maybe some tougher things in life, and so hopefully that can help us. And also I love, it's probably why I do the longer races, because I'm not as fast as, people like Jim Walmsley and Zach Miller in America. They've got genuine athletic talent, which I don't have. So if I race them over 50k or 50 miles or something, they'll almost definitely beat me. But do it over 100 miles, and there's a slight chance, if I get everything right and they get a few things wrong, that it's just a real leveler. The distance is the leveler, even though the terrain's like this. It's more of a game of chess. There are more things to factor in, and there's more of a chance for I guess a slower or older athlete to catch up. I suppose I don't see the age as a big thing, although I do think of it sometimes. But the fact I've got kids as well, so I do have to, I almost think that's a bigger factor than a lot of these athletes who don't have children. So I can't, come the weekend, I can't just bugger off for 2 days and put into 10-hour runs. Admittedly, because I'm self-employed, sometimes in the week I might be able to take half a day or a day off to do that, but I can't necessarily train. Yeah, I can't train like a full-time athlete. And they might be able to sleep. They might be able to just sleep through till 8, 9, 10 in the morning. My children have regularly woken me up at 5 or 6. So again, that's where sleep becomes an important thing. It's interesting, but I haven't noticed a sort of downturn yet. And even if I do, I think, that's what's great about our sport, that it does suit maybe a slightly older athlete, I think.
Well, I think that's it's really telling. I think that your first reaction there is, I might be 43, but I'm only 6 or 7 in running years. Instantly, it's a great joke. But it's also instantly putting you in a different category. You've subconsciously put yourself into another category, which is I'm very young, which I think is brilliant. But then also by looking at, you've got, particularly with the rise of ultra running now, the guys at the front are a different caliber, a different type of athlete, a younger runner. And no one is ever going to make money. I think ultra running may be the only career that makes journalism look like a safe bet. Is that no one's likely to become a millionaire out of it just yet. But there is money now involved for travel, race entries, and if you're in your 20s, you could easily put 5 years into it and go, well, hey, I'll just see what comes out at the end of this, and I'm going to have I'm going to be able to put some basic food on the table, do my races, and I'm not going to have to pay for shoes and a couple of other things. So there's a much sharper end up there, but you're already breaking that down by going, so I might not get them over 50k, but over 100 miles, they only have to make a couple of mistakes. I've got a bit of experience, I've got other things I can use. So you're focusing on strengths, not weaknesses, at every point of the equation. You're focusing on age as a benefit, not a negative, right the way through. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it does seem that those things, subconsciously or otherwise, are channeling into some incredible performances, which includes, which we'll come to next thing, is your astonishing UTMB. Well, astonishing would imply that it was not expected. You did build up to this. It wasn't like you just rocked up and did that. Year by year, you improved and worked at it. But at that UTMB, so I mean, what do you make of that? Am I putting you on the couch and just making stuff up here, or do you think there's something in that inherent mindset that you've got and built?
The whole mindset part of the sport absolutely fascinates me. I can be optimistic and over optimistic about things, and I definitely, for example, I was running just for Christmas. Me and a good friend Beth Pascal, who's an extraordinary runner, we ran the Cape Wrath Trail in Scotland, And again, we were trying to set an FKT, a record on it. And the terrain at times could be incredibly slow, incredibly tough. And my problem that I would do would always be over optimistic. And I'd think, oh, it's 18 miles, that'll take us 3 or 4 hours. And if it took us a lot longer, my mindset would start to go back down here, because I'd be like, I'd be disappointed. It wasn't a huge factor, but it was like I could see that I was over optimistic. She is a doctor, so she has to be realistic anyway. So she would have a much more, well, I think it'll take us this long, so any shorter would be a bonus for her, and she'd be pleased. So that was quite an interesting lesson, actually, that my optimism, and also early on, I suppose, with these races, jumping up the distances quickly and doing the spine race early on, that was optimism. That idea that maybe it's possible, when really, for a lot of people, maybe with the level of experience I had, I don't know, my level of running experience, maybe I shouldn't have jumped up that quickly, but I had this outdoors experience, I suppose, that has helped me. Yeah, it's a great question, but I'm definitely not without self-doubt. And, leading up to UTMB last year was probably the first time I felt kind of real pressure before a race, even though it was all self-inflicted. And I didn't feel as excited about the race as I had previous years. And I've got plenty of self-doubt. I'm very self-critical. But yeah, sometimes optimism can be a useful thing. I don't really have a neat way to sum this up, but it's a curious and fascinating subject, I suppose. But if you can be optimistic during a long race most of the time, you're going to have a better time than if you're more of a pessimist, I think, and more cynical. If you can just sort of, keep it simple and try and remind yourself to sort of try and force yourself to be happy, even force a smile. Even studies have shown, haven't they, that runners who smile sometimes, or see smiles, do better than those who don't.
Apart from when they're crying.
Well, that's good. Crying's good.
Get the crying and the smiling in there.
So that's something to practice.
Just in case anyone were confused, and I'll make sure this is teed up earlier as well, but UTMB, Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc, 105 miles, is it these days?
Yeah.
10,000 vertical meters through the Alps, starting in Chamonix. One big loop takes you through Switzerland and Italy, all off-road. And I'm biased because I love it too, but I think the pinnacle of off-road ultramarathon running, there are other 100-milers, there are other mountain races, but is there anything else that has become such a world race as the UTMB has established itself?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, there are tougher 100-milers and there are tougher races, and there are probably, well, I'm sure there are more spectacular ones, to be honest. I'm doing UTMR this year, and that sounds like it's probably more scenic. I've seen pictures of it, and I've done like Lavaredo, which to me is more spectacular. But there's something particularly special about this race. Might be that, it attracts the absolute best. Kilian Jornet.
Is it the sort of depth of field that's now, the depth of high competitive field that's now at UTMB is potentially a level above what's found anywhere else in any of the others, whether they may be harder courses, harder conditions, more beautiful or whatever?
I've thought about this a lot, and I think it's three things that attract me to the race. And it was, the course. It is lovely big mountains, spectacular, running through the night. You see the snow on the mountains, full moon. And B, the competition. It makes it really exciting. In football, I was a football fan all this time, and I'm never going to be on the same pitch as Thierry Henry. But in running, similar with road running, I suppose, you can be in the same race as Mo Farah. But I can be on the same start line as Kilian Jornet or people like that. Which is quite thrilling, and to pit yourself against the absolute best in the world is quite exciting. And thirdly, though, I think also the crowds are just incredible there. And I was really blown away that first time with how supportive the general population around the whole route was. Just even people who weren't part of the race, just walkers or people out for their Saturday afternoon stroll. Just everyone was so supportive and kind, generous with praise. And that really blew me away, actually. That was wonderful. So, three strong reasons why I've sort of, gone back 4 years in a row.
And so, in no particular order, just a quick one. You've reached a point where over 4 attempts, you took yourself up from something like a 30th place finish to a genuine top 10 contender. Is that a rough, correct timeline?
Yeah.
So that's strong, and each builds on the last. But you're now, last year and the year before, there you are in that potential top 10 space, as you say, lining up alongside Killian and others who may not be, they're certainly not going to be household names, but if you've ever looked at ultra running, these are the legends of the sport right now. So you're there to compete with and against them. How do you manage the, what's the word? I mean, do you get on the start line and feel, I shouldn't be here, or my God, look who I'm next to? Or how do you manage that when you're about to go and run against them as an equal?
It's something I'm still working out, actually, in that it was probably at Lavaredo in 2017 that I first started sort of beating people whose names I knew. And that was, I suppose, a surprise. That was my first sort of top 10 finish in an ultra trail world tour race, which, for those who don't know, is kind of almost a Champions League of international circuit of a collection of races that are usually some of the more competitive ones. That was the first time I was sort of beating people I knew. And that was a surprise and a great thrill. And I still, I'm trying to think, so UTMB that year, I still very much see myself as an underdog against those guys, because most of them are just much better than me, and rightly far more famous.
Well, a number of them were behind you at the end of the race, which gives some lie to them not all being better than you.
Well, I guess I still see that as an accident almost, or that shouldn't have happened. And I don't know if that's a healthy mindset for me, in that it keeps me thinking like an underdog, or could it be hindering me in some ways where maybe I should be more ambitious and I should think I should race those guys from the very beginning? Because, another thing I've developed is that I'm not going to be that fast early in these races. Some of these guys just go bang, off they go, and I can't keep up with them, and it wouldn't be wise to try if I can't. So I
maybe there is an argument that for some of them it's not wise to try, because sometimes they go bang at 70 or 80, which is not helpful in a 100-mile race.
No, and some of them...
It's helpful for you.
Yeah, it's great. And some of them do that time and again, if that doesn't sound too what's the word, critical. But they're still, incredibly sort of compelling athletes, some of them, and it's still fascinating to watch them either in the same race or from afar, because you're not sure what they're going to do, But I'm just not going to be able to race like that. So I have a lot of pleasure a lot of satisfaction from coming, ideally, if it all goes to plan, coming on strongly later in a race and catching as many people as I can, and that's a really exciting way to race. But it takes some discipline and some patience, and sometimes you might not judge it right. You can finish the race thinking, if only I'd pushed a bit more early on or in the middle. So that whole mindset and tactics that fascinates me, as do many aspects of the sport, really.
Just on that timing angle, this is something that another journalist colleague of ours back, Tim Hemming, who does a lot of triathlon stuff, he looked at marathon finish times, London marathon times, and something like, honestly, the number of people running a negative split were, I think it was under 1% of the entire field. And generally, balanced correctly, a negative split will give you the best potential result for you on the day. Over the course of a UTMB, a 100-mile race, how do you manage that thing of that pacing element? Because you've got to be strong at the end. Anyone can be a hero at the beginning. You want to be a hero at the end, but there's a lot more scope for you to gain huge amounts in the second half of the race. But how do you then balance that to hit that finish line, knowing that was my maximum today? I left everything out there rather than getting there and going, bugger, there was another 2 hours in the tank.
Well, it's. I think first of all, you've got to not expect yourself to get it 100% bang on and be a bit easy on yourself. But I suppose I learnt quite well, in a way, the hard way. In that first year, I knew it was going to be hot in the daytime, so I thought, well, I'll go a bit harder in the nighttime. And for those who don't know, the race starts at usually about 6 p.m. So that means going harder, in the early on. And I thought, well, I'll get in a good place early on, and then just sort of hang in there in the heat. But obviously, of course, and I just wasn't used to mountains. So, so I bashed myself up quite a bit, but managed to hang on. And a classic psychology thing, I was getting passed towards the end of the race, maybe by one person an hour. And that was, spiraling me down a bit. But actually, because there were so many people dropping out ahead of me, I was actually still moving up the rankings.
But you don't see that at the time,
no,
presumably.
No, I didn't realize. But
It's
I was
hard.
getting annoyed with myself because I thought friends watching will realize I was at that position and now I'm sinking down. And you get into that negative place. But actually, overall, I'd done great. And most people will only look at your finishing result anyway, which was, surprising for my level there. And then the second year, what was interesting was I now can tell that I had three things holding me back. One was I was in the GB teams, and we had the Trail World Championships 2 months later, and the management there were quite keen. Well, they didn't really want us doing UTMB, but they were quite keen that we should, try and save ourselves for the Trail World Championships, understandably. So there was some pressure to hold back, for starters. I also had a slight Achilles issue, which meant I wasn't totally confident early on. I wanted to. It turns out it was fine, but mentally it put some doubt in there. And then also what I know now is I was still fatigued from running the Southwest Coast Path earlier in the year. So I had three things that were sort of holding me back. So at the first checkpoint in Saint Gervais, about 2 hours in, that you'll know, I wasn't in the top 100. And actually, when I discovered that, I realized I was being maybe too relaxed. But I started moving through the field from there and finished 19th. So that really showed me that if you just calm down a bit and you start moving, and you're often if you do that well, other people are doing the opposite to that. They're all slowing down and you can move past people without, putting any extra effort in. You've just judged it better. And that's when it happens. And, it's probably only happened 2, 3, 4 times to me well. But when it happens, it's just an amazing feeling. And you don't feel like you're putting an extra effort. You're just kind of jogging along and other people are just slowing ahead of you. And when you've seen that happen, it's proven that might work for you. So you try and chase it again. So that third year, trying to think, the third year I almost got it right, but I was a bit more ambitious. And basically, I got into 10th place quite late in the race with only a few hours left. But what I can tell now is that I neglected my nutrition. I didn't get enough in. So I was just performing a bit, slower and slower, I suppose. And also mentally, I was losing some focus. I remember someone catching me and me almost being relieved because I hadn't seen anyone for a few hours. It was almost like a nice feeling. But of course, it shouldn't be if you're losing a place late in the race. But I remember it being in the strange mindset. So I know now, I think that I just didn't get enough calories in. But I judged it in a way. Well, I'd pushed more, but then, flunked at the end a bit. And then the fourth year, I guess, I knew I had to be a bit more ambitious early on, but then I was constantly, I suppose, asking myself the question, is this effort the right effort? And after 2 or 3 hours, I was like, right, time to back off a bit, calm down. And I think from there I was fairly consistent and I was definitely moving the best I have moved towards the end. And people start blowing up around you, I suppose, and maybe you catch a few. But again, I was passing people without even knowing I was because they were crashing out the race. And it is a race that, of high attrition levels or high, a lot of people are crashing out. So
it's still a sort of 40 to 50% dropout rate, depending on the weather.
Yeah, there's usually 2,300 starters, and usually around 800 or so won't finish. And that's all through the race.
And it's not like you can just rock up and enter this race. You actually have to qualify by proving you've got some ability, by finishing a series of other races and scoring enough points to even be able to enter. So it's not like you've got inexperienced runners just giving it a shot. These are seasoned pros, but it's a hard course, and you're losing 800 plus out of 2,300 every time. That's, compared to a lot of races out there, that's a huge attrition rate, and sort of says quite a lot about the course, I think.
Yeah, and then you've got the weather. There's lots of factors, and of course you can trip over, and that's it. It could be it, But I must credit you, Warren, for. We did mention this before recording, but you wrote a piece several years ago about sort of how to do UTMB or how not to do UTMB, which was very helpful to me because you've done it at least twice, haven't you? And you wrote a piece about pacing it sensibly, and that sort of thing, and that definitely inspired me and helped me early on. So thank you for that.
Well, I'm glad to have been some assistance in helping out there. I'm only kicking myself slightly that if that guide can take you to 5th place, for which I'm going to take full and ample credit,
Rightly so.
then I clearly am not listening to my own advice enough, because I was never anywhere near 5th. But in terms of a slow start, I did manage to actually be completely last, with the only person behind me being the mayor in the course car one year, and overtook something like 1,000 people between there and the finish, which for me was a good day out.
Wow. I must admit, when I read that you started right at the back, I didn't know whether that was, we all use a little bit of journalistic license sometimes, whether you really were the last person.
No,
so that's incredible.
I really was, because I remember looking back and I can picture him standing at the roof of the car, and there wasn't anyone else behind me. It's like, I need to speed up a bit, and that was on the drag just down out of Chamonix. But
wow.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that could help. I'll see if I can find a link, and if anyone else is looking to get a 5th place at UTMB or more, then clearly the answer is to read my piece. Nothing else is required. That
Definitely.
was all that was needed. But the two things, and I think maybe we might even have to have another instalment on this, because there's so much more to go into. But when you come to that last UTMB, your running age is a little older. You've got more miles under the belt. You've got more experience. You are an underdog to a degree, but you've got quite a lot of experience, quite a lot of results. There's a more expectation. You're on a finer line between glory and disaster if you're going to push it that hard. On your pacing, all of those things, and you get to that start line. The first question is, I think, did you feel more pressure? Second question, how did you deal with it?
Yeah, I did feel more pressure. It was the first time I'd felt pressure before a race. I had, obviously I've got, I suppose, people like you guys. I've got a handful of sponsors who help me. And, none of them are direct with pressure. None of them say, we expect this from you or anything. But you feel as an obligation towards them, because they've supported you.
We'd have cut the supply dead if you finished any lower than 6th.
That was my big fear. But they've helped you, and you want to repay their faith in you. Also, I made the mistake of doing a magazine story for trail running, explaining how I was going to train, and that my aim was to get in the top 10, and that also ended up online, so it got it could get retweeted, and I probably retweeted it myself early on.
It's accountability, but it's a high bar. There's no hiding.
Yeah, I had people, mostly Brits, coming up to me in Chamonix saying, "Oh, good luck for top 10." And that, in a way, that was lovely. But after a few days, this whole top 10, it was getting to me a bit. And I also had Matt and Ellie, my great friends, who were doing this film, which was their idea. But we were living not just in the same apartment, we were all in the same room. And they were filming me, putting the kettle on, brushing my teeth. And, they're great friends. So they weren't in any way annoying. But it did add, and the day before the race, we sort of went up and did some filming and photography up in the mountains nearby. And it meant, I didn't really have much relaxing time before the race. And it meant, I don't know, there was just a constant feeling. But I had to remind myself, this was, it's exactly the sort of thing the position I wanted to be in, that people thought I might do well. That's nice. And it was only goodwill from people as well. It was only, we hope you do well. And we, so I think I had to tell myself that. I also made a real effort to make sure I get my kit ready early, and I just lay down. I'd never watched Chariots of Fire before, so in a way, it wasn't that important to watch, an inspiring film about British runners, but it was more just having an hour and a half, 2 hours of taking your mind off it and thinking about something else. Actually, maybe it would have been better not to watch a running film at all. But that was helpful, and also, I guess the weather relaxed me, in that I don't really want a hot race. I've had 2 hot UTMBs and now 2 sort of British UTMBs, which sort of a bit of rain and sub-zero temperatures in the night. And when the forecast said it was going to be like that, I sort of forced myself into, like, that's good for you. That suits you. I like that, because where I train in the Brecon Beacons, it's like that, half the time, even in the summer. So I guess I used those factors to try and tell myself that was to my advantage. And But yeah, it was quite new to me, I suppose, that pressure. But like I say, yeah, it was all self-inflicted, and it was stuff I wanted really anyway. So that was all right, really. And Matt and Ellie were amazing, because I did say to them, guys, like, what if I have a bad race? Is that bad for your film? And they were like, no, that's fine. They actually very kindly said, as long as you start the race, then we've got a story, But really, of course, it's not as good a story. Guy hopes to get into top 10, doesn't do well at all. That's not as much of a good film.
As Guy gets into top 10 and smashes, doesn't just get into top 10, more than gets into top 10.
Well, yeah, I felt pleased. Yeah, I was very relieved. Someone who reviewed the film actually wrote very, very perceptively, that on the finish line I didn't look. I can't remember if they said I didn't look that euphoric or something, but I looked, above anything else, I looked relieved, and it did feel like, phew, I didn't totally stuff that up, or there isn't a film about me failing, because they would have still had to put a film out, because they'd invested in it. So yeah, it was a big relief. But yeah, just a wonderful adventure, really. I'm very grateful to people that they could, support me or be part of it or follow it. And I had so much goodwill online and people out in Chamonix. I'm really, I feel really blown away by it all. Actually, it was wonderful.
And with it done, there's some relief. There's a huge achievement. To some degree, life has made a significant shift. That's in the world of ultra running. You certainly put your dent in that to a huge degree there, and that changes some things in life. But on the other hand, life isn't changing. Because you're still working as a journalist. You are not. The running is not everything. You have a life. You have a job. You have a family. All of those things. How did you balance? And was there any sort of lull after the big adventure and the focus and then the achievement? Was there a come down period, and how have you subsequently readjusted? Has it affected your life at all? I mean, it comes across like I feel like I'm talking to exactly the same Damian I've spoke to 5 years ago or whatever. It doesn't seem as a person that any of this has impacted you in a negative way or one way or another. But I think what I'm getting at is, after the end of it, what was the come down like, and how has that been for you since?
I mean, I think having a family, you come home and my wife is pleased for me, but she would have had a very tiring week, looking after the children while I was away. And my children are fairly oblivious to what's been going on, although they have been out to Chamonix and been to UTMB twice, sort of semi-reluctantly. But they'll be like, "Oh, hello, Daddy, I've lost my bit of Lego under the sofa. Can you help me find it?" Like, it's not like, "Well done, Daddy, you're amazing," or anything. So, you come back to earth pretty quickly. My family need me to help them. I'm not by no means any kind of superstar here or anywhere else. And a few people have implied that they thought my life would change dramatically. It really hasn't. I got interviewed by the Wiltshire Gazette. I guess, look, I'm a coach now, and that has helped my coaching. More people have approached me for coaching, especially if they want to do some of the UTMB races, and that's wonderful. And I really enjoy that. But yeah, not much has changed really. And in a way, it was a nice break, because I did have a real obsession with the race. I feel like that's the end of a chapter, and it was quite nice to let go of that obsessive. You're just thinking about the race, 24 hours a day. And I was waking up. Yeah, I was waking up early, not being able to get back to sleep, for quite a bit before the race. Actually, I'd wake up and just all I could think of was the race for a few weeks beforehand. So it probably got to a stage that wasn't super healthy or sustainable. So yeah, it was kind of a relief, actually. So and also, I mean, me and my friend Beth Pascal, we had this next adventure planned as well for December, which was nice to. So I guess I had a couple of months of downtime, still running, but not proper training, and then we had this other adventure to focus on. So I think that's often the thing is, moving on to something else, I suppose. I'm really grateful of what has happened. I'm really pleased with it, but life moves on. There's lots of races out there, and I've had one race since it wasn't nearly as spectacular. So I'm back to stage one really, or whatever stage it is.
Well, it seems like there's a common thread with world sort of champion or level athletes or performers who, after the few that will achieve world champion status in their chosen field, particularly individual sports, it's common in motor racing. The first world championship is said to be a lot easier than the second because you spend your whole life wanting to be world champion, and then when you are, you're like, what's the motivation to continue? And the ones who've succeeded the most appear to be able to reframe the goalposts. Right, I want to be the first person in this generation to win one and back it up with a back-to-back, or whatever. I want to be the first person to win 5. Right, the all-time record is in sight. They keep refreshing the goal, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth. It sounds like you do an element of that in terms of the UTMB thing closes a chapter, and whatever's next in life is the next thing. It feels like you put your energy into that rather than getting stuck on this kind of, well, that's done, what's next moment.
I sometimes, quite a few people sort of say you're going back to UTMB, and they sometimes, I sense they feel a bit disappointed because fifth is in a way close to first, but in a way it's not, because I was still well over. I think I was an hour and 40 minutes behind the winner. So it's still quite a long way, still quite a gap there. And what I realized was I couldn't train any harder than I did in my current sort of lifestyle. I'd need to be a full-time athlete basically, and that would take some, I suppose, take some investment from a sponsor or somewhere. And that's not a plea by any means, because I'm very happy with my life. But I can't train. It's not fair on my family to train as hard as that constantly, or maybe even not quite again. I don't know. So, there's part of me wondering. So, the guys who finished second and third in the race, who I know a little bit, they both were out there for a month beforehand, training. So that's almost the next stage I'd probably have to do, something like that. It's not the only way to do it, but, that's the sort of dedication you'd need to be in the top 3. And I suppose that year, there were a lot of DNFs, and actually my time wasn't hugely different to the previous year. So there is a feeling of maybe that's simply as good as I'll do at that race. So I just thought I'd give myself a year off it and see how much I missed it, see if I wanted to do there are lots of other races. I want to try some other races to see if they capture my imagination like that one. I'll see how I feel when it's on this year, whether I miss it that badly or whether I'm just fine with it. I guess it is a kind of easier year in that, although I've got some exciting races, I don't feel yet that real obsession with one, and in a way that's healthy for me, I think. But it may be that I do one of these new races and I get obsessed with that, or I just miss UTMB so bad that I know I've got to go back and try and do well again. So it's a great position to be. The main thing is I'm still healthy, still able to train well, and in our sport, as I'm sure you will have experienced, or lots of people will have experienced, it's quite easy to get injured or into a position of bad health. So sometimes you've just got to be grateful for the fact you're doing fine, I suppose. That probably isn't the talk of a champion, but that's that's what's going through my head at the moment, I suppose.
But I think that's the talk of sustained performance, which is very similar to the dark times in a race. You can focus on what's wrong, or the one thing that's wrong, or the 10 things that are right. You can focus on, in this case, where you are and what you're able to do, as opposed to something that you can't do, or and to give yourself the time. This is true in business as well. Well, we've seen this so much with the company. You can become so involved in the day-to-day, you lose track of the bigger picture. And being able to actually step back from something even for a short period gives you a different perspective, which may be the thing that opens up the path to what comes on beyond this. And I really wanted to also go into sort of training and balancing the whole family, the work life, with what's effectively been for the last few years an elite level ultramarathon racing career. But I think one of my pet hates with podcasts is their indulgence and the fact they go on forever. So I think we're going to have to do that as a separate episode because it's stuff I really want to dig into. But I think right now we've got through so much great stuff, and we can take a pause there and pick up another one on the training and the other stuff because there's just there's already so much on this. I thought maybe we'll sort of establish the running story and then we'll build from there. But there's been so much already.
Fine.
What do you think?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Are you up for a return journey?
Definitely, yeah. And I'm still very obsessed with, how we train to be the best sort of ultra runner we can be. I'd love to talk more about all of that. That would be swell.
That would be swell because I think it's also it's easy to look at people with performances like yours. Go, well, they're a professional athlete and they're this and they're that, and you really make a strong case for the fact that it's not really what any of those elements. If you want something and you're prepared to do the work and believe in yourself, then what can be done is an awful lot more than could be expected. I just absolutely love that.
Yeah, well, thank you. But I mean, I still have full-time work. I've got to support a family. I don't. Yeah, I have one or two advantages, but definitely some disadvantages when it comes to training. So it's it does simply sometimes come down to that cliche of how bad do you want it? How keen are you to get that result? I suppose, and that could be the key thing, really. I think.
Yeah. So on the two things I've got down here, there's I'm assuming people would find you generally on social media under Damian Hall.
Yeah, I think so. Or if in doubt, it's kind of Ultra Damo or something like that. But I shouldn't be hard to find. I'm pretty annoying and boring. So I wouldn't encourage anyone to rush to follow me. But if you must,
that's all out there now. Coaching, where's all the coaching stuff going on these days? Where do people find you as a coach? And is it all specifically ultra distance?
I've got my own website, which is kind of Damian Hall. That's IAN DamianHall.info, which is kind of my journalism and my running. But there's a link to that on most of my social media accounts. I must admit, my coaching's very full up. I've had a lot of since people discovered whether they were in the sort of UTMB ballots, especially. I've had a lot of interest, which is great. But yeah, people can get in touch via social media if they like, and even people who don't want coaching. If it's a quick question about UTMB or a similar race, I'll usually try and help people if they can be a bit patient. I suppose it might take me a few days to get back to you, but I'm fairly easy to find. I think, yeah.
And then there was the film Underdog. Where can people view the film Underdog? So I realised I went looking for it the other day and I failed miserably. I found the trailer in a number of places, but I was searching around for it and I think I have a rough hang of the internet, but I could not find it. Where is it?
Well, there.
Was there a story?
I can't. Yeah, I can't go into the full details of that, unfortunately. But there has been what's the word? It's available at quite a few film festivals, but it's no longer available for people to buy or watch online. People can probably read between the lines. Maybe with that, there has been what's the word? A technical setback?
hitch.
Technical hitch. Nothing. Yeah, a technical. Let's call it a technical hitch. Unfortunately, there has been a small issue with the film, which means it's not available for sort of public sale or sale, but it is at quite a few film festivals. I just had a message over Twitter yesterday for someone who watched it at SHAF, the Sheffield Adventure Film Festival. So it is touring the country in various festivals. There's another one which unfortunately I'm not going to remember the name of in time. The Mountain Festival or something is touring the country with the film. So thank you for mentioning it, and I'm very grateful for anyone who bought it when they could and who voted. It won an award at the Kendall Mountain Film Festival, and they're showing it on their world tour, I believe. So I'm very grateful to them. But otherwise, it might be. Yeah, there's still a chance it could be available again. But
so hopefully it'll come back out. The only sliver of light I will take out of this is that I'm clearly not totally rubbish with the internet, and it wasn't just me. But that is a crying shame. But for anyone who wants to watch the trailer, it's brilliant. And now we're going to have to, in the next podcast, we will also, as we're doing now, record the video, and you can actually reenact bits of it, possibly with Star Wars figures or your son's Lego. How about that? We can do the budget version for anyone who's ready.
That is perfect. I would love to. I've got I do have a little Han Solo somewhere up here, but I think it's just fallen down. But I've got a little here's a little Frodo from Lord of the Rings, and if I can just find Han Solo somewhere over there, I will do my best to do a reenactment next time.
Brilliant. Well, I think we could do well with that. In the dim and distant journalism days, there was a year the Isle of Man TT motorcycle race was cancelled due to foot and mouth. That's how long ago it was. But I did actually stage the race that year with the 4 leading contenders having an egg and spoon race in pit lane. And the favourite did win. So he was as good at superbike racing on closed roads as he was at egg and spooning. So I think with your
Brilliant.
talents, your characters, the Frodo and the Han Solo, we can definitely set that up.
That's brilliant. I'm in awe. Again, in awe of your journalism and invention. That's amazing.
It was a good gig for entertainment and expanding the mind, eh?
That's brilliant.
Damian, thank you for doing this. Really, really good, and I look forward to the follow-up.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your excellent nutrition products and help. And just this morning, I had this isn't planned, but I did have a 33 protein shake after my run this morning in the sunshine, which my body is still consuming and happily consuming. So thank you very much for your support.
It's a pleasure. I mean, I thought you must have had one because you have an incredible glow and aura, and you just look fast sat there. So no, thank you for that. Glad it hit the spot.
Thank you.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Damian Hall, lover, fighter, runner, father, husband, journalist, occasional crier, an all-round legend. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. It was so much fun unpacking that stuff with Damian. And as I think I said during the show, there were other elements that I thought we'd be talking about when we went into that. And they're going to have to be the subject of a second episode. So he'll be back in due course. If you've got questions or particular things you'd like us to bring up in that show, please do leave them in the comments below. Or alternatively, drop us a line on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you like. You can even email us, contact@33shake.com. So we will continue our mission of feeding your mind with the best and most inspirational content that we can possibly find, while also feeding your body with the best sports nutrition there could ever be at 33shake.com. Also, we referenced several elements in that show, including, I think there was a UTMB guide that I'd written. You'll find that in the show notes below. Links to Damian's website, his coaching, various social handles. It's all there. So, look, hope you enjoyed it. Here's to the next one, and we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for joining.